Greetings and welcome to Enigmatic. I hope everybody finds this video and they're doing well. Or should rephrase that. I hope anybody who's found this video is doing well. I know what I want to talk about this time, but I don't know where this is going to go. So, let's all strap in. There's statistics that are out right now to talk about how there's a lot of people missing out on friendships and like close friendships and things like that. I do always wonder, the data set. I mean, I could probably have looked it up if I really wanted to, but, I tend to wonder, the data set that they cast these surveys for. Because it's not like they're asking every single person. I haven't taken a survey recently gauging how many close friends I have. But, there seems to be a, epidemic of loneliness and, people not able to find intimacy in relationships, as well as people unable to find, friendships and, people to hang out with and things like that. And I think that there's a lot of facets to this issue. Some of it being that our culture is so disparate in and of itself. Out here in the West, we're taught freedom and to express yourself, and we prioritize individuality. And none of those things are bad in and of themselves. But too much of anything is a bad thing. That's why it's too much, right? And so one of the things that I wanted to cover, and I'm going to try to be as kind as I can about it, but I feel like I might have to make the point, I might have to go against some of my scruples, but we'll just see where it goes. But one thing that, would help people, connect more and find more intimacy and find more connection, because we are social creatures at the end of the day, is if people stop getting on social media with so much vitriol. Like, why do we have to be so vitriolic with so many things that we share? And the thing about it too is, like, it might not actually be that many people that are doing it, but it becomes popularized enough. It's similar to what attracts people to the news, right? It's the drama, the things that kind of cause excitement, the things that bring awe, and bring awe in a negative way, right? We're very much attracted and addicted to negativity and our own negativity. And that comes out in the same way in social media, and it starts in a very small way with, one person speaking, and then it starts to balloon and expand when other people view them and feel some type of way about what they said, whether positively or negatively. And whether conscious or not, something about, what entered their sensory system impacts them, and it can either be something that they respond to and react to, or that they keep within them and it kind of finds its way to interact with the information and ideas that we already have. Um, but it's just, it ends up becoming a ballooning effect where things just start to expand more and more and more. So, one person sees somebody bitching on TikTok, and they're like, oh, I mean, like, this thing bothers me, and that thing bothers me, and this over here bothers me, so I'm gonna bitch about all these things too, right? And so then everybody's just fucking bitching. And the thing about it is, when it comes to like the connections that we make and everything, is that nowadays people have a record of other types of behaviors that you choose to not show them. So if I'm meeting somebody for the first time and they seem like they're really cool and whatnot, and they share their socials with me, how I see them might change based on what I see from their socials, right? Um, if they're very kind to me, but then they're a bigot in, so many posts that they have on their socials, I'm suddenly not as interested in being friends with them. I don't want to connect with them as much, right? So we're putting out a bad vibe whenever we get on social media just to vent and just to bitch. And I don't think that people are thinking about this. I brought up how we prioritize individuality, and so it seems that main character syndrome is spread, it's rife. And not everyone, but so many people feel that what they have to share, other people are going to care about too, which people might care about it. But I think that something else that we can do is to reflect, like, how big a deal is what I want to share, and is this something I really need to put out into the world? I kind of come across a fallacy when it comes to freedom of speech, because that's something that people will say or default to when they're called out on saying shitty things, or saying things that aren't productive or seem needless, or are contrary to decorum. And yeah, freedom of speech, they can say whatever they want, but at the end of the day, they also have to deal with the ramifications of that, which includes people not liking what they have to say. And it seems that people that use the freedom of speech argument, it's everybody, or people have to accept what I say, because freedom of speech. No, I don't have to accept what you say. Freedom of speech is very particular. Freedom of speech is with regards to the government trying to stifle speech about the government. So it has nothing to do with what we're talking about when it comes to considerations in society, right? Um, it's like, again, like, that's about powers stifling you from talking about those powers. So freedom of speech, like, if we didn't have freedom of speech, we wouldn't be able to say bad things about the president. There are some countries, yeah, you can't get away with that. They do not have freedom of speech. And yes, it is freedom of speech also to, like, say whatever you want, but it's not freedom of speech for everybody to be okay with it and accepting of it. That's almost like being in my home and saying something that I don't like, and I call you out on it, and we're not seeing eye to eye on me calling you out on it, and I tell you I need you to leave my home, and you're like, no, you have to accept what I say. I'm staying here. No, fuck off. And this is why, to me, and I feel like I'm getting a little bit sidetracked right now, but it's about the nature of our understanding is why I'm bringing this up. But there was the phenomenon of quote unquote cancel culture, and people would bring up, my First Amendment rights are being threatened by cancel culture. No, they're not. Based on the laws that we have in this country, a corporate entity gets the rights of an individual. So if somebody owns a platform and they don't like what you're fucking saying, they can say, shut the fuck up. And if you don't shut the fuck up, then they can remove you from the platform. Freedom of speech 101. It's a two-way road. It's a two-way road. So to get back more towards the point about how vitriolic we are online, and to move it, away from online, is that I make these same observations even when I am, talking to somebody in, like, the day to day, right? If I'm talking with someone and they decide to make any sort of overgeneralization or appeal to any stereotype without any caveat or nuance to it, I'm sorry, but I'm looking at you sideways. I might not say anything, but I am looking at you sideways. Um, so when, like, say for example, somebody brings up, oh, the Jews, and they're not talking about something that is unique to Jewish people that actually has something to do with them, but is just some idea that has been promoted, all the time, like they're hoarding all the money or some stupid fucking shit. I'm looking at you sideways. That's just like how it is, because that's not the case for every Jewish person. It's similar to, recently I've noticed that it's men's mental health month right now, and there are a lot of women out there that are just callous, and they're like, I don't give a fuck about men's mental health, and what the fuck do men need mental health for? And it's like, wow, you don't understand, like, what it means to be fucking human. Not only that, but you're a fucking hypocrite, because you want those same men to care about your mental health. That's why you're salty that they don't care about that. That's why you're so salty and you don't care about their mental health, because you already think that so many men don't care about your mental health. And it's like, you're only perpetuating the situation. Why would I give a shit about you if you're openly going to be like, oh, I don't give a shit about you? That's not how we come together. So everybody wants to act all high and mighty. It's like, sorry, but most of you are fucking idiots. We're all like, there's so many instances in which we're making the situations worse for ourselves. And so, and it's like, it's also sad because, these women that want to mock men that need, mental health help, like myself, I guess that's one of the reasons why I bring it up. But they're probably going to stay alone because they decide to think in that way, and they want to be staunch and overly adamant and overzealous in their position without extending any sort of understanding. And it comes back to something I've said before. So many people want to be understood without extending the olive branch of understanding. It's a two-way fucking road. Freedom of speech, two-way fucking road. Friendship, like relationships, companionship, like everything, two-way fucking road, right? And so then the last thing that I kind of wanted to get to is that it's hard to make friends if you are judging everything in a negative way, right? So it's one thing to make a judgment based out of like pure discernment. So, I see an apple and I see an orange, and I'm like, okay, those are different from each other by virtue of these features and other phenomena that I can see about them, okay? But when I suddenly start to make one better than the other, or one bad and one good, like things are starting to go out the window, because an apple isn't better than an orange and an orange isn't better than an apple. If somebody wants to say that, they're just expressing their, personal preference, because there's also going to be somebody else that can say the contrary. And then the other thing about it too is, just because more people say something over something else doesn't mean that all of them are right, or that that has more veracity or accuracy. It just means that the most of them like that thing. It doesn't mean that, so like with music, for example, it doesn't mean that a song is actually better. It just means that most people liked that song, right? And like one of the things about it is like, how many people can actually judge music? Like, how many people have ear trained and things like that? If there's a very small amount of people that have done that, then what does their judgment about a song mean anyway? How are we, what's the metric to say that it's good or bad, right? And so when we're making like judgments about things, what kind of judgments are we making, and what's the point in making them? There's a lot of times that we make judgments about people, especially, and they're needless, and they just put bad energy and bad air, and they're kind of bigoted and they're discriminatory. Like, that's just the bottom line to it. Um, and it's like, the other thing too is, I'm not saying that, some of these thoughts that one might have aren't, natural, because as creatures that grow through time, we learn to augment our thinking and to refine what we think. So if we're thinking certain things in a bigoted way, then, over time we might be able to see it in a better way. So for example, a lot of people don't mean to be a bigot when they say it, but the idea of, oh, she's pretty for a black girl, implies that, black women have a lower degree of beauty than some other race of women. Right. And so like the person doesn't mean for it to be bigoted, but it is bigoted all the same. They have the opportunity to learn and to change that. Right. We can do the same thing when it comes to the types of judgments that we make, and the things that we want to say, and the things that we want to share. The other thing about it too is like, I really feel that most people should shut the fuck up if you're not informed or versed in what you want to talk about. So if you've never looked into anything about the dynamics of, you know, I mean, I don't know. There's so many different things of like different racial dynamics. Then you probably shouldn't talk about a given race in certain ways, especially in ways that sound judgmental, if you don't know shit about those dynamics, or if you were just appealing to stereotypes. Because like usually a stereotype, like it might have some truth to it, but there's also the reason that it became a stereotype, and that is more telling than the stereotype itself. Um, And so, yeah, I mean, just don't speak on what you're not aware of. That's kind of how I feel about things. And if you're not aware of something and you want to speak on it, give the caveat. I'm not really aware, but like my intuition says this, my reasoning says that. Like, am I off? Am I on? You know? And the other thing about it too is like, if we're trying to come at things, trying to be more understanding to also be understood, then we need to let go of the need to be right. Like there's so many instances in which people are trying to be right instead of trying to understand what is the reality of a situation, right? It's almost like trying to mold reality to be the way you want it to be, instead of accepting reality as it is, which is the only thing we can really do, accept reality as it is. Otherwise we're just like stoking and steeping ourselves in our own delusions. So yeah, that's my tirade for the day. Please give me a like. Go ahead and share and subscribe if you feel so inclined. I appreciate you. I thank you for being here. Um, I feel like there was something else I was going to add and say and share, like kind of something that was newsworthy, but I can't remember what it is right now. So be good to you, be good to others, take care, and have a great day. Talk to you soon. Peace.